Welcome to the Organisational Behavioural Analytics webinar with me, Chrissy Coates. My business is You Transition, and my mission is to empower businesses to create a workplace full of engaged, capable leaders and employees that view learning as an adventure and are able to realise their full potential. And I do that building long-lasting relationships based on my core values of integrity, trust, and lifelong learnings. I'm a Harrison consultant. I've been using Harrison in the coaching work that I do, the team development work that I do, and the organisational design and delivery work that I do for about 8 years now. It's a really, really versatile tool, and what I really love about it are these analytics that underpin the whole solution. So my background is 12 years in a corporate environment as a store general manager, managing retail stores predominantly, various sizes from small to large, with teams ranging from 20 employees to over 180 people. So I understand what it's like to work and lead people in fast-paced, KPI-driven, multi-million-pound budget environments, and the challenges that go along with that, but also the successes and the excitement and the great opportunities of working with people as well. So what are talent analytics? So many organisations will have financial, sales, marketing and operations systems in place, analytics in place that highlight trends and drive their businesses forward. And a report by Deloitte shows that only 4% of companies currently use predictive talent analytics. So talent analytics are an exciting and fast-growing area in human resources, and it's essentially it's data collected and driven around people. And if you think about, certainly when I've been part of HR teams, how much of the time do we rely on our gut feeling or hearsay when we make people decisions? Talent analytics are a force that allows us in HR to now have data-driven decision-making information at our fingertips that will allow us to make better decisions, ask different and more informed questions around employee engagement, and that obviously leads to improved productivity, which will ultimately increase revenue and improve ultimately employee retention. So talent analytics allows HR as a function, but also hiring managers, line managers, to make better people decisions, more informed and as I say, data-driven decisions. But it can only work if all the decision makers from every level, from executives through to the direct line managers, understand the value of it. So when it's appropriately used, talent analytics can absolutely align your workforce with your strategic business plans and your company vision, not only for today, but absolutely for the future as well. So, as I say, a report by Deloitte says that only 4% of companies currently use predictive talent analytics. So why would you need them? Well, Deloitte, again, in the same report, predicts that those companies that use talent analytics will actually outperform their competitors when it comes to hiring and retaining the best talent. And, we all know that if you have the best talent, then you're likely to have the best performance and ultimately, therefore, the best results, business results. And as people make or break the success of your business, why would you not want to utilise a solution that enables you to, as I say, make better, more informed decisions and ask different and more informed questions? There are a number of talent analytics software offerings on the market. Most make the analysis of trends in data that already exists, such as things like staff turnover, absenteeism, things like that are already kind of in there. And some organisations will use them to great effect, others not so much. But very few organisations offer or are using an offering around talent analytics based on what makes people successful within the workplace. And that's what the Harrison analytics system really does. So consider this. Do you think you know how to get the best from your people, or do you actually know? Is it gut feel, or is it based on fact, on data? Do you know if your leaders are equipped with the right behaviours to lead effectively? Do you know how to accurately define the behaviours of your top performers? And if so, can you replicate them so that you can either recruit to them or develop against those criteria? Do you know if your investments in your people actually impact their performance in the way that you intended? Do you spend your training and development budgets wisely? And can you demonstrate your return on investment? Are you able to accurately measure the competencies, the culture, and values of your organisation? And do you have data-driven people insights that will help you inform strategy and rewards, benefits, packages, and so on? These are all just some of the questions that can be answered using predictive data and predictive talent analytics, allowing you to get ahead of the game. So what we're really doing with talent analytics is allowing us in HR to be strategic. So focusing on the strategy and the planning, the future focus, rather than just doing the do. So allowing us to be true business partners. It provides insights which enable us to ask different questions and therefore make better and more informed decisions as a result. It enables powerful conversations to be had either with individuals, teams, or at organisation level, and allows us to focus on future, so strategy, insights, and creating culture. But also it enables huge time savings and cost savings because for a lot of it, it enables us to automate the bits of HR that software can do really well, but also allows HR to focus on the bits that only humans can do. So to really look at the data, look at the information, and have those conversations that will make the difference. So I'm going to start off by talking a little bit about Harrison assessments because there's I suppose a fundamental piece of context that needs to happen in order to understand where the analytic dashboards come from. So Harrison Assessments is a whole end-to-end talent solution. So it's been around for 30 plus years. It's had 30 plus years of research and was created by a man called Dr. Dan Harrison. He is also creator not only of the tool, but of the methodologies. Methodologies, paradox technology and enjoyment theory. He's a doctor of philosophy and psychology with master's degrees in counselling psychology, organisational psychology, human potential psychology, but he's also a mathematician as well. So this tool is really robust. It's used by over 500,000 users annually. It's available in 39 plus languages and pretty much globally. We've also got 6,500 fully customizable job templates in the system. Now, these are fully job researched. And the difference, I suppose, with Harrison Assessment to a lot of assessments out there is that Harrison's research was really centered around understanding what makes people successful within the workplace. What makes them really successful within the role or the job that they do, the career that they pursue. And what he found was that job success has very little to do with personality, but has an awful lot to do with behavioural working preferences. So from this became or founded his kind of two theories of enjoyment, performance theory and paradox theory, but also these 6,500 job templates that, as I say, are fully researched, but also fully customizable. So as you complete an assessment, the analytics that sit within Harrison assessments allow you to measure somebody's performance against a job that you're recruiting against, or that you'd like somebody to develop further, either in an existing role or a future role. So Harrison Assessments, as I say, it's an end-to-end talent solution. So you can use it from the beginning, acquisition, recruitment, onboarding, talent development, through employee engagement, through to succession planning. You can use it as a whole solution end to end, or you can use those component elements of it independently. What makes it different and unique to a lot of other assessments on the marketplace is that whichever aspect of it you use, whether it's one portion of it that you're going to use independently, or you're using the whole thing end to end, it has these talent decision analytics that run through. Therefore, it makes it a very, very valuable tool, and something that is multifaceted. Starting point for all of that end-to-end solution is one smart questionnaire. So when somebody completes the assessment, we ask them to fill out an online smart questionnaire. It takes around 20-25 minutes to complete, but it is the equivalent of a full day's worth of testing. It's incredibly efficient. It measures 175 different traits, interests, and other factors in those 20-25 minutes. And behind the scenes, because, as I say, Dan Harrison is a psychologist and a mathematician, he's enabled it to perform over 8,500 cross checks behind the scenes as this assessment is being completed. And the variables that it measures include personality traits, interests, values, retention factors, behavioural competencies, workplace preferences. And as I say, because it is a job-specific tool, all of those things can then be compared to a specific job role if you so choose. Smart questionnaire is the foundation for all reports. So once somebody completes that smart assessment, you actually, no matter what you're using it for, whether you're just using it for recruitment or engagement or development, you actually have, the moment somebody presses submit, you have access to all of those reports across that whole employment life cycle. So it's a really, really clever assessment. And what it allows you to do is to predict accurately performance, engagement and retention, and matching proven job-specific success factors against employee competencies as well as those employee needs. Once you've got the assessment completed, you can cut and slice the data any way you choose. There are numerous reports in the system that you can use to work with an individual or a team, a function, a division, or ultimately the whole organisation overall. And there's also various functions to allow different analytics to be collated and pulled based on what it is or how it is that you're using the assessment. So Harrison's decision analytics, so these kind of talent assessments, cross-checks, all these things that are kind of going on behind the scenes are constructed using these psychological methodologies. There's a deception preventer built in, so the tool knows if you're trying to answer it too quickly, if you're trying to fudge answers, and will flag that up. It will allow us to determine whether behavioural tendencies are actually strengths or whether they are derailers. So one of the things that Paradox technology allows us to reveal is where strengths are genuine strengths and when those strengths may actually be potentially derailers. If we're using it for recruitment, it allows us to measure both eligibility, so those things are like education, experience, skills, etc., and suitability, so those behaviours, traits, factors that are make somebody more suitable for the role based on their enjoyment of it. and therefore provides us with a really rich set of accurate and reliable decision analytics that focus on crucial success and engagement for any job, and will allow us to then support and accelerate decisions through that entire management employee life cycle. So just to quickly share with you the two underpinning theories, because these also are going on in the background as the assessment is completed and are fundamental to producing some of the analytics that will be captured on the dashboard. Enjoyment performance theory. So Harrison's research shows that employees who enjoy at least 75% of their work are 3 times more likely to succeed in the role that they do. And essentially it says that if you enjoy something, if you like it, if you really enjoy it, you're much more likely to repeat it, and therefore you're much more likely to get better at it, to naturally improve. It's something that you're going to want to do more of. That leads to increased self-confidence. You're probably going to get some external feedback to that extent as well. That leads to increased confidence, which leads to further enjoyment. So you tend to do more of it, you improve, you get feedback, and so on. So we have a cycle that repeats in a very positive way. But then also the converse is true. So if you don't enjoy something, whether it's a task or a behaviour, we're very likely to not repeat it or put it off. Therefore, we don't get better at it. We tell ourselves we're no good at it. We possibly get external feedback to that effect as well. And what we get is a cycle that repeats in a negative fashion. What that means is when we have a scoring or the scoring mechanism within Harrison, we're able to say which of those behaviours based on enjoyment performance theory are the ones that we're really drawn to, the ones that are likely to be our strengths and even our life themes, and those that potentially are the ones that we are going to be at best procrastinating on and at worst avoiding altogether. And everything that is captured within Harrison, so all of those 175 different factors are all scored against that scoring mechanism. So we know that the score that somebody has is therefore very measurable as well. So when we focus on developing a particular trait or a factor that's measured by Harrison, when we then complete the assessment again in 12, 18 months' time, whatever the time scale is, we should be able to see a development improvement against the score or the area that we've been focusing on. So it makes it very measurable, and therefore we can see that return on our investment, unlike personality assessments, where typically personality doesn't really tend to change over time unless you've had that major life-changing experience. The other underpinning theory that again runs in the background with Harrison is paradox theory. So what is a paradox? Well, in Harrison terms, it's two statements that appear to be oppositional or contradictory, but nevertheless are both true. So Harrison measures 12 paradoxes. These are things that, as I say, are seemingly opposite or contradictory, but in order to give us the best behavioural outcome, needs to both be in play to give us that behavioural flexibility that gives us the best behavioural outcome. So what you can see on the screen here is the paradox of coaching mindset, and the two traits that we're measuring is enforcing and warmth and empathy. Now, most assessments would lay those two opposites out on a straight line, so you would have enforcing at one end and warmth and empathy at the other, and depending on the scoring, you would come out as more towards the enforcing end or the warmth and empathy end, or maybe somewhere in the middle. And if you are in the middle, it doesn't really tell you a lot. So what Harrison does is lays out the opposites on a grid format, and therefore what you can see is in terms of quadrants, the relationship between those two traits. So when both of them are high, when both of them are low, or when one trait is higher than the other. And each of those quadrants are labelled, so we can see that in the top right we've got compassionate and forcing. So if both enforcing and warmth and empathy are highly scoring, the behaviour that would be exhibited by the individual would be compassionate and forcing. So being able to hold people to account, enforce rules, procedures, make things happen, but doing it in a way that is empathetic and relational, and in a warm and kind of friendly way as well. For this individual on the screen, we can see that the warmth and empathy trait is much higher scoring than the enforcing trait. So actually the behaviour exhibited by this individual is permissive. So they're going to be allowing people to pretty much do what they want. So they may well have set expectations or set goals or set rules and things that need to be done, but they're not going to be holding people to account for that. So pretty much people will be able to do what they like, and you'll probably hear this person complaining that the team don't do as they say, they never deliver on time, and maybe that person feels like they're always having to pick up the pieces and do the work themselves because the team isn't doing it for them. So what we can see is in the top left-hand corner, we've got harsh and a big red swirl. So what in this instance, what we know is that warmth and empathy is such a high scoring trait that it's probably likely to be a high life theme for this individual. What happens when we have strengths, so this will be a strength for this individual, but when we have strengths that aren't balanced out by their oppositional partner, is that under work-related stress and pressure, it causes us to have a flip reaction. So in this instance, it's a fight response. So we're not getting the result that we want. We've tried the behaviour that we know typically works for us, so that using our warmth and our empathy to get things done, it's not got us the result that we want, so we try harder at it. And then because we're just really frustrated or maybe annoyed, we flip to the opposite quadrant, so we become really, really harsh. The warmth and empathy goes out the window, and actually it all becomes then about enforcing the rules. So you will do it, it will be done in this way at this time, there is no negotiation. So the impact of that on the team or the individual can obviously be quite huge. So Harrison, for the 12 paradoxes that it measures, allows us to see those strengths, whether they are true strengths, when perhaps there are development opportunities to be had, and also that flip that may happen under work-related stress and pressure. And as I say, there are 12 paradoxical pairs. So, great quote by Steve Jobs: your work is going to fill a large part of your life, and the only way to be truly satisfied is to do what you believe is great work. And the only way to do great work is to do what you love. And that really sums up enjoyment performance theory. So as I mentioned earlier, Harrison assessments, the research proves that employees who enjoy at least 75% or more of their job are 3 times more likely to succeed than employees who enjoy less than 75% of their job. And we all know that those that don't enjoy their job begin to impact the culture of a team, or the function or the organisation, and obviously that also spills into other colleagues, other departments, and ultimately into the home environment as well. So continually adapting and growing based on our customer research and our feedback, we know that behaviour is a choice, and as such we can choose more wisely and differently if we've got a framework to make those different behavioural choices. So the whole Harrison assessment process allows us to leverage our personal development and growth. So these are the engagement employee expectations that Harrison measures. So 8 categories, and again, just showing you this, so again it makes more sense when we see the dashboard. The 8 categories, so development expectation, remuneration expectations, authority expectations, and so on, are split into wants and then the traits that support those. So Harrison says that engagement is a two-way thing. Ultimately, the employer has a responsibility, but equally so does the employee. So if we look at the wants, so the wants are all in the dark blue. We can see that wants development here for this individual is at 9, so it's quite a high scoring want expectation. Now, as an organisation, we need to be providing development, absolutely. But just providing that development alone is no good if the employee hasn't got traits that support the development or completion of development. So when we're talking about wanting development, Harrison says that the employee has a responsibility as well, and that comes in the traits that are delivered. Excuse me. So we need to be enthusiastic, so very clear on the goals and the expectations of ourselves, what we're setting out to achieve. And we need to have a drive for self-improvement, so to get off our backsides basically and take up the development that is being offered. Harrison also allows us to capture somebody's fulfillment, so we can see here that at 80%, this person's fulfillment, this person's expectation, has been fulfilled. But for some of these others at 40, 30%, that would suggest that there's an opportunity here to have a conversation with this individual. They're not being fulfilled, and it would be a good opportunity to understand why. The beauty of the Harrison assessment is that all of the engagement and employment expectations are captured as part of that SMART questionnaire assessment. So when people are completing it, we're automatically capturing their engagement expectations. This means that all the reports are identified at individual level, so they're not anonymous, and that gives us the power then to be able to go and have conversations with individuals when it really matters. Paradox report that is produced gives us the opportunity to capture those paradoxes in a report that covers the 12 pairs. And these can be measured in columns and rows as well. So we've got leadership competencies, we've got achievement paradoxes, we've got interpersonal paradoxes, but also in terms of a project, we've got the initiating phase, the motivating phase, the implementation, and the maintaining phase. So this really gives us an opportunity to look at paradoxes on an individual level, but also to look at a more holistic level and see that story that's being told. Now, we know that leadership behaviours, the things that that leader, that individual does, absolutely influences and impact the attitudes of their direct reports, so their employee attitudes. And the employee attitudes directly impacts their own behaviour, and ultimately these are the things that drive our performance. So from that, we know that there's a direct correlation between leader behaviours and business performance. And ultimately, that's what we're using the dashboards to provide us with information to manage more effectively. So the Harrison Analytics dashboards allows us to measure senior and emerging leadership competencies. Now, these are fully customizable as well. So if you have your own set of senior and emerging competencies, you can map those into the Harrison system, and then anytime somebody completes the assessment, they will be measuring your own, or measured against your own competencies. The emotional intelligence competencies that are in the system have all been mapped against the Daniel Goleman assessment model. We've got cultural collaboration and team competencies. We've got remote worker and remote leader. And then we've got the paradox and the engagement and retention data that I've just shown you on the screen. Okay, so let's have a look at the system. So just bear with me while I set it up. Okay, so when you have your Harrison system, each business will have its own system, and you can set up or I can set up for you the subscription that you wish. So you can have top line organizational analytics, you can have just engagement analytics, or you can just have competencies, or you can have the whole lot. And the whole lot works out at around about £50 per person or per employee. So if I show you the subscription options or the system, so if we look at engagement first of all, so just thinking about the slide that I showed you with those 8 factors, what you get are those 8 areas broken down into the wants. So if you remember, we had wants development, wants advancement, wants to lead, and so on. These are all shown across the top here. And the first column is the overall fulfillment for the whole population. So we know that 147 people are in green, the traffic light system. So green is kind of okay, it's the good. Yellow is those people that may or may not be happy, so a conversation possibly is needed, and the red, a discussion is definitely needed because these people are not happy. So you've got your overall population breakdown here, and then it splits it down again by population, but by the specific engagement expectation. So as we scroll across, what we can see is it goes from the most fulfilled to the least fulfilled behaviour. So we can see here that once personal health is really not important to this population at all, which may in itself pose some questions. Once I pay, equally not overly important. Whereas once opinions valued, people are quite happy with that, and so on. Now what we have underneath is then all the individuals that have completed that questionnaire. So by name, and obviously this is all demo data, so these are all dummy people, but you have their overall fulfillment. So RT, we know at 82% is pretty happy, but we can then see by breakdown of those individual expectations which ones are important to her, or where she's not being fulfilled, and which ones are less important. What we can then do is click on an individual, and we can then go to their individual report. And this is then where we see the detail for that individual against each of the expectations, what their traits are that support that, and their fulfillment level. And then we've got a much more detailed report that sits underneath with some text and some indicators about what's going on for that individual, the best way to engage them, and so on. What it really allows us to do is to have that conversation very specifically with that individual. And then if we were to maybe look at the team that RT sits in, or the function, we could ultimately look at the other population, ask different questions about what's going on, what are the themes that are coming out. Is it, something that we could maybe help the leader with, that we could look at the policies or procedures around, that we could put some quick wins in place to maybe help things move along. So we've got the opportunity to generate a report of the data that you can see on the screen. We can generate a team engagement report. So if we wanted to pull off RT's team, we could do that and look at that team, or we could pull off the reports one by one for the individual. And what we've got the opportunity to do is to set up our own team. So you can set it up by a department or function, by a specific team, and then you can also filter that data accordingly, depending upon how you set it up and how you wanted to kind of filter it. So that's the engagement dashboard. The behavioural competencies, again, as I mentioned on the previous slide, we've got a range of assessments here. Emotional intelligence, as I say, that's measured or mapped against the Daniel Goleman model. The senior and emerging leader competencies and also the assorted behavioural competencies are fully customisable. So, as I mentioned, if you have your own in a business already, that means that you are able to map those into the system, and whenever somebody completes an assessment, you can then or you will be measuring them based against your own criteria. So you can also build up a rich set of data about your own competencies, both from a leadership perspective and a generic competency perspective. These have been quite useful in other populations, other businesses, where people have mapped their own competencies. So, for example, we had a business that we worked with that mapped their own competencies into their own Harrison system, and they were running leadership development programs for first emerging leader populations. They completed the Harrison assessment as part of the beginning of entering that development program, and what we were then able to do was, through the detail and the data that we were able to capture, was tell them by their own competencies where the strengths were for that population, where the development gaps were, and that allowed them to ask questions about the type of training and support that they had on offer, the spend for their training budgets, where they might want to spend their coaching, type of questions and support that they needed to give the leaders and the line managers in order to help those emerging leaders through that development program, and so on. So what I've selected here is the emerging leader competencies, and as before, you can filter this by department, function, organisation, team, however you've set it up, and you get a similar view to the engagement. So you have the overview, but this time it's in terms of competency. So we know that of this population, 136 are mostly competent, 71 are partially competent, and then 1 is not competent at all. And then we've got the competency headings, and again they run from the most competent competency through to the least. So we've got innovation, learning agility, problem solving, and so on, all the way over to leading people. So we know that this population, leading people is the weakest competency, and so on. And again, underneath that, you then have your individuals, so the overall competency score, and then that broken down by individual competency. And again, that enables you to target your development for that individual very specifically. So we know Artie, pretty competent on all but 2. So you know, her development might be different or focused fairly differently to this individual here, where there's more red and yellow. And again, as before, you can click on an individual. You can pull off the whole report, so the overall report for every competency, or you can just look at the competency that perhaps is the weakest. So you might just select leading people. And again, that then gives you the individual's report, specific report. I won't go into how you read these reports, but obviously very happy to give a demonstration. You get your overall percentage of competency, but then by the individual trait, it tells you how that person has compared to that competency. So if they're green, they've got sufficient of it, they're probably competent, but it also enables us to see that there is still some development to be had. So even though they're competent, they could benefit with a bit more development. And then obviously where they're yellow or red, there's significant development to be had. So you can select, if you have the competency option, you can select that for any of the competencies. The view is exactly the same. You have your competencies across the top by population, and then the individuals underneath. And then you can select by paradox. So if you remember, this is the report I showed you with the 12 boxes. Again, you can sort by function, department, however you've set it up. And you can sort by various paradox combinations. So personal development is where the person has not been run against a job. In this instance, though, we've got customer service as a job, we've got sales as a job, we've got technical and professional added as job roles in here. So we can see how somebody compares when they've been mapped against a specific job role and what their level of mastery is for that particular role. So within the competencies, dark green means that they have that strength and we would encourage them to apply it. Green means that they are pretty good, but development may still be beneficial for them. Yellow, development is needed in that area, and 14, development is important. So again, you have your overall summary for the whole population that's been measured. You've then got the paradox names, and again it runs across left to right from the most competent paradox through to the least. So we can see that opportunity management is the least competent for this population. And then again, underneath, we have all the employees with their overall score and the opportunity to pull off reports for those individuals, either by individual paradox or for the whole report overall. Because this is a demo system, the paradox hasn't yet been completed. But when you have your own system, you'll be able to view that all together. So that's the analytics system. As I say, you can choose just engagement, just behavioural competencies, or you can have the whole system, which the whole system itself works out roughly around about £50 per person or per employee, and you can manage the system yourself. You can pull off any of the reports yourself, and just to show you the kind of the reports that are in the system. All of these that you can see on the screen here, they're all available immediately somebody completes that online smart questionnaire. So depending on the package that you choose, you've not only got all of the analytics available for an individual or a team function or the business, the whole organisation, you've also got those individualised reports available as well. Okay, so whistle-stop tour of Harrison Analytics. I'd love to talk, so if you have any questions, if you would like a more detailed demonstration of a particular aspect of the system, please reach out to me. My number and email address are on the screen there. Please connect with me on LinkedIn. My QR code is there, so feel free. And obviously, I also have a calendar, so my Calendly link is on the system on the screen there. Please feel free to put a book meeting, and yeah, let's chat, let's talk. Thanks ever so much for listening. Hope you've enjoyed it, and I look forward to speaking to you soon. Thank you very much. Bye for now.